Hello, everybody. We are back with Freddy, my state mate. You think,
Hello, hello.
yeah, really nice to be together again and just chat. Love these chats, and grateful you could be here with me.
Thank you,
Um,
thank you.
yeah. So what's been on my mind is this idea that I think it's been on my mind forever, but I just had this epiphany of words where it's like a clear sentence that nurtured heart approach is not a positive reinforcement approach to me, where I am not looking to reinforce certain behaviors by showing up for them so that they happen again. My goal isn't to have repeated behaviors. I think there's a lot of positive reinforcement in the world. There's a lot of approaches that will help you with positive reinforcement and emphasis on that. And I think when like getting to the essence of what nurtured heart is, it's really limiting to make it that. And it's not even the point. Even though I started off that way, I think just wanting to be positive about the way I manage behaviors and the way that I manipulate doesn't sound nice, but manipulate my kids, that I wanted to do it in a positive way that wasn't damaging. But I still ultimately was wanting a certain type of home and a certain type of kid and certain type of routines, which I'm not going to say is never necessary. We are the adults, and I do with little kids especially, I do need to make sure that my home is safe and that things are happening and all that, but that's not the for me, it's like that's not the point. That's like a side point. It's like, by the way, part of parenting is making sure that everyone's safe and getting through the schedule and making sure everyone has what they need and safety and all that. But like my goal, my purpose, my intention, what I'm really looking for me with nurtured heart as it unfolds and unfolds and unfolds for me more and more and more, it's not at all about positive reinforcement. And so the words that came to me were like, reinforce the person, not the behavior. Like what I want to do is I want to be reinforcing these kids that they know themselves. They know their greatness, their worth. They know their power. They know their rights. They know it's so much more than worth though. When I say worth, so that's another thing. It's like nurtured heart takes things to the next level. It really, really does. Worth is something we talk about in the world. We're worthy. We're enough. I feel like nurtured heart takes it to the next level. You're not just worthy. You're not just enough. The world needs you because you're freaking amazing. Like you have a light, you have a spin, you have a version, you have a color, you have a hue that's not repeatable. Like we can't make a copy of you. You're the only you. And like, please, like give us you because we can't be complete without you. Like, so who are you? What are you? Let's find that out. Let's explore that because we need all of it. So let's go there. So like, yeah, I'm showing up for behaviors. Yeah, I'm like, wow, I just, hey, like, I don't know, my son cleaned up today, the game he played. I was like, did you just clean up that game? Yes, you did. And he's like, oh yeah, and I even bent down to pick up a piece that dropped. It's like, that's so responsible. You bent down to pick up a piece that dropped and you made sure to put it back in the game. Like you played, you cleaned up. That's so responsible. It's so organized. It's taking care of everything. Sure, I'm showing up for behaviors, but why am I showing up for that behavior? Why am I telling him that? Because I want him to clean up next time? It's really not in my mind at this time. It's not about whether or not he's going to clean up next time. It's about the fact that he cleaned up now was something that he did that is a reflection of his maturity and his showing up in life and his teammanship and his just success, his just awesomeness. And so I want to show up for that. So yeah, I'm going to show up for behaviors. I'm also going to show up for when he's not having those behaviors and and what that shows about him. And I'm also going to show up for his personality. And I'm also going to show up for his thoughts. And I'm also going to show up for his ideas. And I'm also going to show up for his opinions and his just version of life. And I want to be curious enough to be able to reflect the greatness in the parts of him that were never my plan, don't fit with what I've ever saw as a good future. Like I want to be curious enough to figure out what it is he's bringing, because I believe that he's bringing something. I believe he's offering something. I believe that who he is on purpose and so perfect and so beautiful, that if I don't see the value yet, I haven't looked hard enough. Like, I want to open myself up to really getting to know him and reflect that in all the reflections and all the recognitions. So I've just been excited about that. I feel like I've known this, believed in it, but still kind of teeter-tottered between that and this. Like, how do I really differentiate? How do I really, like, it's not positive, like, I believe this, but how is it different? And I don't know. For me, I feel like that line was crystallized, and I'm excited about that. So that's what's happening for me. I will now let Freddy talk, because he actually had a lot of good things to say.
Oh, every once in a while I try. We'll see. It's interesting. I feel a lot of what you're saying for sure. When I am thinking about the approach, I very seldom think about it as, an adult working with a small child. For me, my life of 20 some years has been as a high school teacher. My children were already in their late teens when I really started practicing nurtured heart approach. I use nurtured heart approach probably the most with my wife. So I'm very much interested in how nurtured heart approach and the things about the nurtured heart approach affect relationships with people, especially equals. So that's a whole nother conversation perhaps. But I think when it's a parent to a child, or a teacher to a student, or a therapist to a patient, there's a power dynamic there, which is interesting. I tend to want to explore, parents and adult children, or coworkers, or spouse to spouse, sort of things where the power dynamic is more equal. And I think it's a very interesting and fertile field to think about. But what you're talking about, I think works in all areas. I was stuck on the word manipulation probably about a month ago. If you were following my Monday messages, there were probably 2 or 3 in a row that were kind of about that. And it's very nuanced. And what I landed on right now when you were just talking is, we say all the time, like the facial expressions, tone, it's not about what you say, it's about how you say it. And I was thinking very much, if everything in nurtured heart approach is really about the reality of the energy, then it's not really that we're going to say or do different things, which is what parents often want to hear when they're coming up with, tell me what to do in this situation. How is this going to work? And I totally get that feeling, but you might say or do the same thing, just with a wholly different energy behind it, which is what I liked about your intention. It is not in my mind. When my baby takes one of their first steps, wobbly, crooked, whatever, falling, I'm not cheering them on because I want them to take more steps. I'm cheering them on because there is joy in my heart at watching this miracle that just took place in front of me. And so, again, where I'm going is, it's nuanced. It's nuanced, and I can say 2 opposite things and have them both be true is another thing that I would like to say. It's not a fully binary sort of world where it's either this or that. It is sometimes both, oftentimes both. So, and many times more than just 2, more than just both. It's all of. So I want to say that because on one hand, like if I want my teenage son to be, and I don't have a teenage son anymore, so this is totally fictitious, just as an example. If I have a teenage son and I think that they need to be more organized, I think that being organized would be good for them. And I'm not seeing ways where I can really recognize their organization, then I might start to create situations where I can recognize their organization or his organization. Or I might think of what kinds of skills it takes to be organized, like planning ahead or something like that. And I might look for ways where I can recognize that. And I'm trying to grow greatness. And so on the one hand, I like intentionally growing and manifesting greatness in myself and others. When I'm doing my inner wealth breathing, in the morning, I think of what kind of greatness I may need to deal with the struggles I'm coming up against that day. And I try to manifest them and create them out of nowhere because I know I will need them. And I like that. On the other hand, though, that can very quickly lead to manipulation. So what I try to ask myself, and then I try to ask parents and teachers who are learning to ask themselves is, what if my son never is organized? If that's the greatness that I'm trying to grow, am I going to hold that against him? Am I going to treat him like he's less than? Am I going to risk my relationship with him? And I hope the answer to that is all no. And therefore, I need to get over myself. Like, again, it's like forcing a tree to try to be a cactus or a cactus to try to be a tree rather than just enjoy the treeness of the tree and the cactusness of the cactus. Like, my son is awesome and he will be awesome whether or not he ever becomes organized or not. Yes, in general, organization's a great trait, sorry, but there's lots of people in the history of the world who have been great and not been organized. So that's just one example, but if you extrapolate that out any number of times, I think that's what I want to say. That yes, we can lead our children towards greatness that we want to grow, and ourselves, our spouse, our coworker. But at the bottom line, it has to be because we're loving who they are and we're recognizing these things they do are great, and it may lead to these other things or not. And we're still going to love them and recognize all the greatness in them, whether they do this thing or not. So, I guess when I'm talking now, it sounds like a different way to get to unconditional. But what I liked about what you said, Mussi, which is, now I'm going to forget, but what your verb was, but the person and not the behavior. Reinforce. So reinforce the person and not the behavior is, I want to say that same thing, because what I'm recognizing is the person, and I value the person. And again, if they're organized or disorganized, if they're behaving well or not, whatever that means, behaving well, I'm still going to love them as the person they are. In my worldview, this miracle of a creature in front of me that each one of us are, I'm going to value that regardless of the behavior. I'm not going to let the behavior hinder my relationship and recognition of the miracle that we are. And so then, although that sounds very Pollyanna, perhaps, how that plays out even in, law enforcement or in dealing with business transactions that go poorly or any number of like real life adult difficult situations, if I recognize that the other person is a great creature in and of themselves, and I'm just going to recognize that fact above all else, so many other little problems can be erased. So, wow, that was a lot more than I meant to say. But I guess I had a lot to say about what you said.
Wait,
I hope that made sense.
Tell me more about the last thing you said, about the little problems being erased by the bigger
well, I mean, silly things like getting cut off in traffic, to like, the person that I'm doing business with, not giving me the exact dollar amount. And I don't want to say they're like, defrauding me or something like that's obviously an issue. But I mean, like, just it wasn't a clear meeting of minds. No one is necessarily wrong, but whereas you could easily escalate that into feeling that you're being taken advantage of and demonizing the other person instead of just recognizing, like, no, this is just a misunderstanding. Like, their perspective is equally valid. I need to be clear, right? I still need my stamp 3. Like, I need to state my case clearly. I need to make sure I'm not being taken advantage of. But at the same time, I don't need to name call. I don't need to create, the other person doesn't need to be a bad guy. I don't need to pretend that one of us is a bad guy. Again, it's not a win-lose or a lose-win, right? It's not always just a zero-sum game. I think when you really start putting the human being at the center of it, I don't want to escalate those things. And then at some point, like, if it's $20, if it's $5, like, it starts to become, is the relationship worth this? You know what? Like, if one of us has to, quote unquote, lose the $5 this time, there's a bigger battle, or there's a bigger war, I guess, than just this battle. I don't really care that much about this particular consequence. What I care about is the relationship. What I care about is my state of mind and being moving forward. Do I want this stress in my life? Do I want this tension in my life? But again, I want to state for the record and people watching, this is not like some pacifistic, throw yourself down to be a doormat to people who will just take advantage of you. It is not that at all. It's just recognizing that my time and resources are limited, and I want to spend them where I want to spend them. And getting totally pulled into everybody's drama or everybody's potential problem does not get me what I want, and it does not allow me to spend my energy, which is really life, in the ways I want. I'm just getting pulled by, other people's drama, and I don't want that. So I can be very intentional with what I'm choosing to energize. And again, to me, just to be clear, there's so much injustice in our world right now. There are so many isms that need to be fought. There's so many walls that need to be broken down, which means a little something different when you're here in Arizona with our southern border. But there are so many walls that need to be broken down. I don't need to make fights up, right? I don't need to escalate little things. If my son cleaned his room exactly the way I wanted him to or not, if his assignment was done without procrastinating or with a little procrastinating, like, is that really going to make a difference? And yes, I still want to teach him how to be organized. And yes, I still want to teach him how to manage his time as best I can teach another human being. But at what cost, and at what limit, and at what not damage necessarily, because sometimes it's the building, but I just want to think of the ramifications to the relationship. Is what I'm about to do going to build this relationship and strengthen this relationship, or is it going to damage the relationship? And that's kind of what I want to have guiding my choices to respond. And if I'm living out of my memory, this is another quote that I've been saying a lot recently, is to live out of my imagination as opposed to my memory. My memory says a lot of yelling and a lot of consequence, and you listen to me because I'm your parent and I told you to do this, and therefore you will do this, or you're disrespectful, you're horrible, I'm going to kick you out of the house, blah blah blah. We've all had that go on in lives. This is different. This is, I'm not going to jeopardize this relationship over something that is just not that significant. It's a big mind shift, but I think where we started, it's about the energy and the intention behind it. Because sometimes you do need to cut people off, and sometimes there's a stand 3 line that gets broken, and there are real natural consequences, and it's not punitive. It's just a consequence. Like, this is what I needed as a boundary in my life, and you violated that, and therefore now the relationship has been changed. It's not what it was. There are times for that, for sure. So again, I'm not asking anybody to put themselves in danger or to be a doormat, but to really do the inner work to see if what your energy and what you're responding to is what you mean to. So I would love to hear you.
Yeah, well, this is so exciting to me because I feel like, for me and in my experience, and anybody like me, I guess, there's a certain permission that comes with this of like, wait a second, it's okay for me to only put the relationship first. Like, I don't have to control anyone else. Like, it's not so much, I need to control you, I want to control you because I'm this domineering control freak that needs everything to be my way. I actually believed that as an adult, or even as a human, it's a reflection of my responsibility and citizenship if I'm not making everybody be the way that they should be and do what they need to do. And like, I have to, like, of course I don't want to, of course I don't want to, fight this, like you said, battle or put the relationship in jeopardy, but like, I have no choice. I can't just allow this negativity to happen. I can't just allow this person to think it's okay, or this institution to think it's okay, or for this kid to think it's okay to get away with it. Not because I actually personally want to punish them. I just feel like I have to. It's like it's a different paradigm of what human responsibility is. Like, are we responsible for each other's choices? Do we need to keep everyone else in check? And I think that the groundbreaking freedom of this provision is kind of rooted in like something I've had to learn the hard way, which is that whether or not I believe it is my responsibility, facts on the table is I actually cannot control anybody. And then
That's what I laughed about. Just to interject really quickly, I was laughing when you said it, because I'm like, control other people. I know I fought that battle a lot, but I can't even control
Go
myself half
myself.
the time, especially when emotions get escalated. So how could I possibly be responsible to control anybody else's decisions when I have enough struggle just controlling my own?
Well, that's why this is so freeing for me, because there's the level of I can't control anyone. Literally, I'm going insane because I'm trying to do the same things over and over again and they're not working and everything's coming, my life is insanity, to like, fine, I'll let go, right? Fine, I won't try to control everything. Fine, I'll surrender. But at the expense of being a responsible citizen, at the expense of being a good mother, at the expense of having the relationships I want, and the expense of everything. Because like, if I can't control everything and if I can't make everyone do the right thing, then I'm bad. Then I'm failing. The freedom of this is like, wait a second. You don't even have to. Like, that was never your job. That is not our job. Our job is not to make sure everyone else is in check. We don't have to. It is not a responsibility. We can trust. That idea that we can trust humans, like, wait, we can trust people to handle their own lives, to make their own choices, to suffer their own consequences, and they'll be okay. Like, we don't have to protect people, we don't have to save people. Like, what? And that freedom of that is like so exciting for me, because it's like, wait, so I get to live in greatness? Like, you're actually saying that I could just love people and think the best of them and have that benefit of the doubt and have that, find the value in them no matter what. Like, I don't have to get involved in whether or not their choices were good or not, and I agree or not. Like, I can let people have different opinions that I don't agree with and be okay with that. Like, what? That is so amazing. That's such a gift, because that's what I don't want to walk around figuring out how everybody's wrong and how I need to teach them the right way. I hate that. So the freedom of living in greatness and inner wealth and having my role in the world to be to highlight people's beauty and gifts, it's like, I'm on. Like, thank you. It's
That
freeing.
just made me that just made my teacher heart so happy too, because when you were talking that time, I was just thinking of what teaching means. And again, I think we're so confused about that. Like lecturing your kids, punishing your kid, that's not how human beings learn, right? It's more like by modeling, by experiencing, by building upon success and following your curiosity. Human beings figure stuff out all the time and we learn all the time, but we don't learn by being told, and we don't learn by being shamed, and we don't learn by, all of these different things that people sometimes try. So, and I think we're very clear on that in Nurtured Heart, right? Like the lecture, especially when things are going wrong, is not how people come to their greatness. So, yeah, so maybe you can teach your children how to be, quote unquote, again, teach, but it's not by setting up these random rules that you have to enforce, or trying to, treat them like basically just training a pet, clap and give them treats when they do something right, and punish them and ignore them when they're doing something wrong. And
And
people
have that
sometimes
positive
think that is
reinforcement.
the right. People sometimes hear that in Nurtured Heart, and I hope that's not the way they're thinking about it. But actually, to model these things and to say these things out loud, and to, again, if there's, I was thinking even about citizens, right? Like if I see bullying happening, it's not my job to go intervene physically, but I can say, hey, stop it. Or better yet, if I don't feel like I'm safe there, I can go check on the bullied person and let them know that I see them and recognize them and value them, and not everyone in the world is a bully. Um, so again, I'm just thinking when you were talking, I haven't thought that one through. That is purely in this moment, but I'm thinking even the responsibility we have with injustice or bad behavior, there's a lot of different ways to think about it. And yes, I think we should probably speak it. I think we should probably put our energy to addressing injustices when we see them. But again, at what cost, and making whom an enemy? And just because somebody is doing something bullying, even right now, when I call them a bully, like, I don't know. I think every human being on the planet has been both bully and bullied. It's just the state of being people. I don't think that everybody is aware of it or trying to do it. It's just how the dynamic happens. So, anyways, that's another subject. But my point there is to make somebody the bad guy. When the kids come home from school and they have a story to tell about how they were so wronged, the other kid is going home telling a story also. and probably they have different good guys and bad guys in their version of the story, and we all do. So I don't think we need good guys and bad guys. We just need recognition and value, and listen to the kids and model what life is. And hopefully we don't need these crazy, punitive, ugly sorts of emotions going on in households, because it doesn't help. We've been doing that a long time as human beings, and I don't think that much has been solved that way.
So I got distracted a little bit because full disclosure here, because my kid's school called. So
I want to hear this.
We're gonna have to close up, but I think to the point of what you're saying, I was able to reset myself and bring myself back, which I am proud of. To the point of what you said just now, and bringing it back to what I said, and then to what you said right before that, which is that this is actually the piece that Nurture Heart did bring to me that I wasn't able to find anywhere else, that really bothered me. This combination of where stand 3 clarity means I do not have to compromise any of my values, any of my boundaries. I get to have absolute clarity over what I am and I'm not okay with, and have my rules both as a parent in a home, a teacher in a classroom, or just a human in the world. And it's not energetically charged. There is no reflection on what I think of you, or how I relate to you. It's not about that. It's just clarity. Like, there's no, I trust you to handle it. And we have to have another conversation, because I think this would lead beautifully into the reset concept, which is a whole other conversation.
Absolutely.
So I will go see what my kid's school needs. And it's always so fun and such a treat to talk to you, Freddie. And thanks to all our audience for hopping along and watching with us. And
I love it.
Next moment of connection, whenever that is.
Absolutely. Thanks.
All righty. See you another time.